when to start.
Go right ahead.
Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. That was our next appointment is Susan Crocker, Chester Playhouse. So guess somebody will bring her on.
They're entering the room now.
Okay. Morning. Susan?
Yes, good morning.
Morning. How are you?
I'm very good.
That's good. So you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.
So warden, counselors, staff, it's a pleasure to be here in front of you this morning, and thank you for the opportunity to update you on the rebuilding plans for the Chester Playhouse. It seems like we were just here. It's become my annual event. But it really does feel like we were just here speaking to you about, in fact, the last time it was the COVID supply chain issues we were experiencing and the resulting impact on the costs of the restoration. At that time, last spring, we asked you to consider an exception to the policy of alternating years for major grant applications. In the end, our approach to you wasn't successful, but we were able to secure supplemental funding from Heritage Department and many individual donors. And the project that was coming to a conclusion at the end of last June was fully funded. And then the Playhouse was destroyed, as you know, in a construction-related fire. The Chester Playhouse Volunteer Board has, since the date of the fire, had two priorities. Sorry, I just got to, the sun has just rotated and I can't see my screen. Sorry, winter sun is different.
Yeah, well, it's nice to see.
It is beautiful to see. So as I said, the Playhouse Volunteer Board has had two major priorities since the fire. The first, of course, has been to navigate through the administrative aftermath of the fire, right through to a plan for rebuilding. And the second priority has been to sustain the Playhouse organization and continue to fulfill our mission, presenting arts to the community. So starting with the first, working through the insurance and then the fire-related rebuilding implications has been challenging. We've gone from a situation where we were grandfathered with respect to some life safety aspects of the building to a situation where we will have to meet National Building Code requirements. And this brings us right up against infrastructure constraints of the village of Chester, namely municipal water supply. The standard solution of sprinklering, which is the automatic response when you're talking about National Building Code for a gathering facility, is simply not feasible, as the barriers involved in creating a site-specific water supply are truly impossible to overcome. So our going forward approach, developed with leading experts and in full transparency with the municipality, is to achieve equivalent life safety through enhancements to building design, construction, and function. So we've just been working through that process. Reconstruction needs to begin as soon as possible for many reasons, which we cited in our note. And we have just completed controlled demolition of the building to the point that reconstruction can begin. So if you have an opportunity or want to sort of walk in the door, you will see a building that is stripped clean with its wood frame standing, ready for the next step, which is sort of scrub it clean and then begin building. So we are working to have the project ready to restart in March or April. We have funds from insurance proceeds to get us started, but the budget for rebuilding will exceed the amount of our insurance proceeds and cash on hand by approximately $1 million. And this gap is at the estimated total of fire and safety related changes, contingency for market inflation and other cost risks, and further accessibility and energy improvements that come into play, given that it's pretty well a total rebuild. The day after the fire, turning to keeping the organization alive, the day after the fire, we moved to serve the community as the Playhouse Without Walls. Our community engagement committee had laid the groundwork in the previous years to build bridges across the municipality, in many ways working through our councillors. The Playhouse team was therefore able to reach out to contacts from Hubbard's to Chester Basin to New Ross to the Western Shore to assess a whole range of venues and then match them to types of performances that we could present, all within the constraints of our situation, our financial resources, and of course, the recurring COVID impacts on gathering. As complex as it has been to set up a different venue for each event, working from storage lockers, staff vehicles, and our rented offices, this has in fact been the silver lining coming from the fire. Our vision all along has been for residents of the municipality to view the Playhouse as their playhouse, alongside the other valued social spaces close to home. But we always knew we needed to earn that place by programming for a range of interests and understanding the barriers of participation. So the Playhouse Without Walls has really helped us strengthen relationships with local partners, and that's going to give rise to collaborations even when we return to Pleasant Street. The Playhouse will always have an element of its operation which is without walls. This experience has also, though, underscored the importance of rebuilding. The artist requirements and the audience expectations for professional performances, music, theater, film, and more, are technically sophisticated. Well, Renee Smith at the Chester Baptist Church was a remarkable evening. Amanda Riley at the 40s in New Ross was a special intimate event. And Lenny Gallant brought the Chester Legion to full life. These spaces were designed with different multi-use purposes in mind, priorities in mind. All these community assets complement one another. They are indeed our social infrastructure. But the Playhouse needs to be rebuilt to ensure that we have within our municipality and our region a high quality, iconic, year-round acoustic and visual experience that's comfortable, accessible, safe, and showcases local and visiting artists for our residents and for all the people who want to visit the region. The municipality, the province, ACOA, the Federal Department of Heritage, and over 150 individual donors from across the province and beyond are invested in this project to date. And only by completing construction will these investments result in the benefits that we had all agreed were important 2 years ago, including that year-round performing arts facility, the theater and meeting and assembly place that can be used by other community organizations, and critically, an economic driver for the hospitality sector in our region, as the Playhouse has always been. The upper limit of 100,000 on major grants to individual organizations is a policy limit of the municipality that was established and has served the municipality well. So why would you make an exception to this upper limit in this case, which is what we will be asking for? This is a situation of exceptional circumstances, a tragic fire, and there is no choice in affordable solutions available to us due to the combination of the water situation combined with building density in the village core. The Playhouse has to be rebuilt for both safety of life risks inside, but also in response to what has been learned through this fire about proximity to other buildings and the challenges that presents in a fire situation. I recall a concern that you expressed last year about the municipality not wanting to be the substantial investor in any one project, but rather to be, I think Ward and you commented on this, rather to be a lever to help move a project forward with participation from other funding sources. With an additional 200,000 contributed to the rebuilding, the municipality of Chester will represent 10% of the total aggregate project funding. And that is a substantial amount. But it could also, there could be no stronger signal to the other funders of the project and the donors about local commitment and leadership. It will help trigger the balance that we require to get the job done. So I'm going to pause there and respond to any questions that you have. Thank you.
You know, I don't necessarily have a question. I mean, it was a tragic event. I know that you're doing your best. I know that it's a challenge. I know that the building code is not making it life simple, you know, and yeah, it's important to me to have it rebuilt. It's just, we have to have the discussion about, I mean, this is the second application this morning that really doesn't fit the requirements, you know, and we just have to, and they're both good. And yeah, it's just, we just have to have a discussion about how we're going to approach them without opening the door so wide that there's no sense in having a policy anymore. Yeah. Oh,
And-
so
and we-
yeah,
we
I
res-
don't have any questions. I know what you're doing is doing the best you can and trying to fulfill the dream that you had in the first place, which was to improve the Chester Playhouse, which is important to all of us. So I don't know if anybody else has questions or not at this point in time. I think
Can I just say, I'm sorry, I failed to introduce my colleagues because my screen,
Oh.
I had multiple things on. Kirk McCullough joined us. Kirk is my partner and he's overseeing construction once again. The good news is the team that we introduced you to 2 years ago has fully committed to staying the course. And Andrew Chandler has also been listening in. Andrew is the executive director that joined us in the midst of COVID before the fire and has been learning all the intimate details of presenting art in your neighborhoods.
yeah, it was good. It's good to see you both. At least I knew your names because they're on the screen.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question, Alan?
Sure, you can.
There's a question, not necessarily for Susan, but just for on process. So the request here is going to be for the 200,000. So we
That's
have, our policy is
100.
100,000 is the maximum.
Yeah.
But the request for the 100,000 hasn't been made yet either, has it?
No, we'll submit an application by month end.
Right, and we're going to decide whether or not we would look at it, an exception and look at an application for 2. Is that what I'm understanding, Mr. Warden?
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is the discussion we're going to have afterwards.
I understand that. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah. I mean, they're eligible for the 100. That's not a problem. It's
Right.
whether we make the exception and go to 2.
But then we have to, yeah, okay, I got it. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
I'll have
I
lots of
just,
questions later. Sorry, Susan.
Sharon, sure,
Jennifer.
I just wanted to comment that they can apply in 2 years for another 100,000.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm
Well, that's a
feeling that,
discussion also, you know, is that the approach, and do we, whatever, you know? Yeah.
this is exceptional circumstance in my mind, but we'll be
Yeah.
discussing that.
Yeah. That's it. Tina?
Thank you. And I know we probably should just stick to questions right now, but I can't help myself. I need to give a compliment. The Theater Without
Always good.
Walls and the outreach in terms of those communities, massive. And I knew at the time, but then with your words, Susan, I really didn't give thought to that in terms of just how it just really did expand the thinking and the warmth and the embracing of what more could come with that whole example of the Theater Without Walls in terms of, at least in New Ross, when you were in New Ross. And I'm sure it was the same multiplied out to those other communities and the performances that you touched on. Second compliment, if you will, and I may not, you spoke so quickly, but it was around the piece with the rebuild and the infrastructure and the 4 walls. And we need to continue to have within our communities and beyond the high quality, the quality acoustic, the sound, the space. So it was within all that you had mentioned about performers and having that as a venue. So I'm getting to something here right now, but basically it was again, I've mentioned it here at the table before, and it may seem small, but it really isn't. It's that whole plug into music program that Jamie Younger had led, and the individual performers that blossomed through that whole 8-week or 3-month or whatever it was process, if you will. And I still remember when Eric, at the time, the general manager, reached out and they were able to, and then started it as a tradition, almost as an annual thing, to open your theater up to those individuals to perform. And again, it may seem small, but I remember Eric saying to me that time that it may be, it's the first time in some cases, but it may be the only time, if you will, that these young and older individuals will have that professional venue in terms of performing. And it was, again, might seem small, but it really is not small. And I want that to happen again, and I know it will happen again. So I know I should be sticking to questions because we're limited on time, but I just couldn't help it. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
I have a question, Alan. Sorry, I don't know if you can see my hand or not.
I cannot, but I can if I move
Okay.
this.
It's Counselor Asaf.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Susan. The only question I have is, so you're committed to rebuilding in the same location. That was, I've heard different things that maybe you'd be moving, or was there any discussion about that, about trying to move into a different area where it's not so dense, or?
Sure. That's a great question. And in fact, I think in the weeks after the fire, I probably had 20 different debates on that on street corners in Chester with people passing by. And in fact, there's a couple of elements that come into play. One is the Playhouse is this anchor on Pleasant Street, surrounded by our hospitality core. And there's this, we always know parking is lots of fun and is sort of a blood sport at times, but it's this walkability factor. That's how you get people to the show after having their meal in town and so forth. So you would lose that. And everyone we've talked to says the trade-off of going to another location may not be worth it. It might be just enough to make it too much effort for people to go to a show or to go to dinner before or after the show. Second thing is, if we built on a new location, it would inevitably be a larger building because we live with the constraints we have on the site. But there's many things that are imperfect. And the cost we know would be excessively more than it is. We would also have all of the same life safety issues. So we would need to build to the rigor and standards we're going to in this rebuild, or we would need to acquire land adequate for, a 40 by 60 by 100 foot cistern. So it's a great comment. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan.
Anyone else, any questions before we move along? Because we have a lot to talk about. Anyway, just thank you for your efforts.
Okay.
It's nothing simple.
No, and thank you. I mean, we know you've been with us from the beginning, and you continue to walk with us. And we want you to know that our team, as much of a struggle as it is at times, we're committed to getting this done. So,
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll be there in some fashion.
Thanks.
Anyway, thank you
Bye.
very much.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Okay, so we're pretty much on to having a discussion about major grants, 9.1. I think we've had some of it already. And I guess, I don't know. I'll only give you my own opinion before we get started. I want to do both. I want to make exceptions in both cases. It's just that it's just how we manage that without causing ourselves great grief down the road. To me, the Chester Playhouse is it's easy to support that it's an exceptional circumstance. I mean, it burnt down, right? That doesn't happen every day. So that one there is actually easier for me to deal with. The one in at the sailing club, I had the discussion with Dan, to take a look at at the grant for economic development one instead of this one. But that one there, based on our policy, is supposedly driven by council and not by a community group. Now, other than that, it would have made perfect sense. But you know, so it's just how we approach it, because I think it's one of those ones that's the economic benefit is more important to me at this point than you know, it's a big deal. It's a world-class sailing event. It's just how do we approach it without getting ourselves in great trouble in the future moving forward. So I want to do it. I just I'm not 100% sure on the sailing club. Just I think that the Playhouse is a simple one. It burnt down. If that's not an exceptional circumstance, I don't know what is. But the sailing clubs, it's how to craft that we don't open the door for because we don't support private clubs. Yes, Derek. Derek first, then Andre.
Okay. I agree with you, Warden. I just, again, process help me here. I understand the Playhouse one. What is the policy exception that we'll be making for the Hubbards one? What is, Dan, I think you explained that during the break, but I thought we were on break and I missed it. So maybe you could do.
They're a private members club, and we do not supply grants to private members clubs. Like
So that's the exception we'd be voting on.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the Sailing Club in Chester, you know, like we support the youth program, but we don't support the Sailing Club and the capital projects associated with the yacht club.
And if they came with an application, we'd never support it, I'm sure.
We would not. In the past, we have not.
Yeah.
Nor do we the Rod and Gun Club or the Legions, unless it's for a specific open to the public purpose.
And the other thing I'd like to, and Floyd, I don't want to, I know Floyd is just, I'm not convinced of the economic benefits long-term on the Hubbards one either, but that may not even be, we may not even get to that stage in the discussion, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, it's I don't know. I mean, I think that it's a good project. I think that it's, you know, it brings recognition to the municipality to hold world-class events. I mean, there's all that kind of stuff, but it is an exception. And how do you make the exception without causing yourself great grief and moving forward? And I think Andre had his hand up first, and then Floyd.
Yep, no problem. At first, I'd like to speak to the Chester Playhouse, and I'm going to say some things. I hope that they're the same sort of things that others are thinking, but I'll just say them for the record. You know, I feel like we've just only a few years ago given the Playhouse a couple or $100,000 as part of the renovation, which is now lost to the fire. So here we are again, and now the ask is greater than our normal allotment that we would give out for this grant. But as was already said, you know, we are in an exceptional situation, and it requires an exceptional response. You know, the Playhouse, you know, it's open, it's available for all walks of life, it's for all ages, it's accessible by all parts of our community and our municipality. I think when we set up this fund, it's funded through the proceeds of wind revenue. You know, this is exactly the sort of thing that we had hoped to fund. And if a fire had occurred in the arena, I think that there would be no question that this council would be in some way supporting them. And I think that if there was an ask that was above $100,000, I don't think that we'd think twice, because preserving and supporting the arena promotes one of our core values of promoting recreation for the physical well-being of our residents. And in the same way, preserving the Playhouse preserves the mental health of our residents. So it's important. And I think that, I hope most on council would agree that this is a very important thing, and it's exceptional. So for that reason, I think I would personally be in favor opening it up this one time. And we may want to, as a council, we may want to be thoughtful about some caveats around that. So if we give them some exceptionally large grant, maybe we might say to them, okay, you know, here's $200,000 because we know you need this right now, but we don't want to see you back here for maybe 5 years, you know, something.
I thought that myself. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that, you know, that it's like a one-time thing, you know, and anyways, there's that aspect of it. I think there's no question that this is it's a core thing that makes one of the things that makes our municipality special is that we have this facility. So anyways, I've said my piece on that. With regards to the Hubbard's sailing event, you know, I don't want to detract in any way from this event because it's a very important event. It's really wonderful that we're bringing this event here to our area, although it is sort of a lot of it is actually on the HRM side of the line, I think. I kind of feel in some ways that it's going to have an economic impact as any major event if this were a concert or something that were happening on and the Hubbards like with some major performers, or you know, it would be sort of in some ways similar, and there would be requirement for infrastructure to support that. It hasn't really been clear to me how if we were to invest $100,000 into this event, how that will allow a greater number of our youth to participate in a sailing program, or in some way there'll be lasting impacts on the community as a whole in a broad way. So I'm struggling to see how this, when we set up this fund that's funded by to build capacity in our community, I'm failing to see how that really fits well with this and why we should make an exception for that. So that for me is the
No
challenge.
clue what's going on.
No, it's a more complicated one. Yeah.
I'm sorry, did I have the floor?
Yes, you do.
Okay. So anyway, so for me, that's the challenge, and that has to be explained to me before I'm willing to do that. But also, you know, we have to be willing to make hard decisions, and sometimes you'll have competing interests, and as a council, we have to make those decisions of what's the best thing. And we have two options in front of us, both of which are asking more than what we would normally allow. And you know, there's a finite resource. We put these limitations on ourselves for a reason. Now we're looking at exceeding them in 2 cases in 1 year. I think there'd have to be a really strong case for that to be done. So I think sometimes it doesn't feel good to make hard decisions, but we have to make them. And so that's some thoughts that I've had as I sort of deliberated over this, and I'm looking forward to hearing from others.
Yeah. Floyd, you have the floor now.
Yeah, I did. I'm sorry. I lost contact there. I missed a lot of Andre's comments there, and I'm not sure just where he was on it. But anyway, I'll speak. First of all, and I'll talk with the Playhouse one. I'm in agreement. That's a great facility, and they need our help. And it is side of what we're supposed to be doing.
We're losing you, Floyd.
On the side.
Can't hear him. Can't hear him.
We can't hear you, Floyd.
I've heard a couple times about, and I think that's why the ask come in from them is because they saw. I live in Hubbard, and I look at it as one community. All the people benefit from the sailing club. They train there for the last 10, 12.
We're having really difficult time hearing you. Can't hear you at all now.
I'm wondering if Floyd try Floyd to disable your video and just try audio, and then restart with your comments, Floyd, where you're breaking up. So maybe disable the video and try.
I'm going right offline there at times, and I think it's the internet down here for some reason. I'm sorry about that.
No,
I'm gonna go back to one Hubbard's. They talk about, I keep hearing the line here from different people. This is a community event in my community, Hubbard's. There's a line there. I can't help that. But I look at the province and HRM, the money they've contributed to this event. And I look at it more as an event than than the Sailing Club asking for something. I think they asked it that way because they thought the only ways Hubbard's or Chester would support it was if it came from a facility that was located in the municipality of Chester. And I don't totally agree with that. I think they should have asked to sponsor the event more than
I
they
agree.
have funds.
they'll make life simpler for us.
Yeah, yes, and I think they made an error asking for it that way. So I think we should ask them to resubmit and ask us to support the event. I could do that easier than I could, and I agree. Private clubs, well, I have a problem with that myself, and I don't think we do it anywhere else. I don't have a problem supporting that event. It's a huge event, and it's not just that's 5 or 6 days. There are going to be people down here the whole month of August coming in early, sailing, practicing. There's spin-off events. There's going to be infrastructure for the next 10 years from this event benefiting Hubbard's community. It's going to be some in HRM and some in Chester municipality, but I see huge benefits from this. And I'm certainly hoping council can find their way to support it in some manner. But I do agree they should be asking for funding in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, yeah, Chad, yeah, you
Yeah,
need to
I
have a
just-
discussion with them. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that they have not submitted an application yet. So what happened today was just an overall presentation. And so they're looking from direction from council as to whether or not you would accept an application. So if there is a particular way that you are wanting to see an application come in, so there is an opportunity, for the host organization to submit an application, that could be done. So they're looking from some direction for you as to what you would like to see, and if you're even willing to consider accepting an application, because I guess we're at the point with the January 31st deadline that we didn't want to have them put a whole lot of effort into submitting an application if council wasn't going to consider it at all. So I guess that's the point of the discussion today, is getting some direction on what we would suggest to them in terms of what we would I guess ask them to apply for.
I think, Chad, that what would be, council is somewhat concerned with making an exception for a private club and opening that door, then, because that creates problems for us. But if the broader organization that wasn't made up of the private members club submitted an application, that would make life simpler for us.
Yes.
So they can do that. So so an application could come directly from the host organization. They are a separate organization unto themselves. So if there is a preference for an application to come that way, that could happen as well.
Well, that's where I'm thinking. But Derek, we may have all kinds of opinions here.
Well, I mean, I have no problem with them making the application. I don't want it. If I supported them making an application, I don't, at this point, support the funding. There's a lot.
It's not a guarantee of getting it. No,
and I don't want it to sound like you submit it and you're going to get it.
Right.
No, it's just that then they would at least be eligible, and we would consider it. It would be easier for us to consider it. Yeah. And unless I hear differently, I think every one of us here understands that the Chester Playhouse, there is no problem in justifying an exception in that case, because if we can't do it here, I don't know how you ever would.
I agreed, Alan. I said that right from the beginning. I support that. And I have no difficulty with Hubbard making an application, but there's a lot more questions to be asked on that one.
Yeah, there are. But if it came from an organization as opposed to opposed to the membership, that would make our life simpler. They would have a better chance, because I would have trouble, even as much as I like the event, making an exception for a private club, because there's reasons we don't do that.
And I think to make it clear that we all think it's a wonderful event. There's nothing taking away from the event.
No.
Let's make that clear.
Yeah. And I mean, we can help them in a variety of ways, and a grant is only one of them. Yeah. So we want to give staff direction to tell the Playhouse to submit the application and
Yeah.
that we're prepared to consider the exception.
You need a
And the head
motion on that?
staff, yes,
Do you need a motion on that?
no, I do not.
No, okay.
No, and just to direct staff to have a discussion with the sailing club in terms of a different approach to the request.
Yes.
And then we would consider it. And
Yeah.
no decisions have been made.
Fair game.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so now I have Abdullah, TRI. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, excuse me. Up at the old Go River School, as we know, is a playground now as well. And I had TIR through Glenn when Glenn was there. He was able to put, without permits, a small playground sign at either on the number 3 highway at either side of the park. And
Yeah.
I've some residents asking, because people are speeding through there again, and that's such a small sign. I'd like to put in a request, if possible, to TIR or whatever they call it. Yeah, for
Whatever.
not just a playground sign, but an actual speed limit sign there for playground. And I think they do that. It's a bigger sign with playground ahead, speed, because it always was a school zone there. But now that people think it's not a school, and it's very dangerous there with the speeds. So I'd like for them, if staff could send a letter to inquire if that's a possibility. And I've seen a few of them around, and it's the next step from what's there now, because the one there now is probably about a foot by a foot, maybe not that big, and it has no speed limit on it for playground. And I think they have a program that allows that, a speed limit through a playground, if I'm not mistaken.
Well,
So
I don't see any issues with us making the request, and
Yeah.
they'll respond. Anybody have a problem with staff writing
No.
them and that? No.
Great.
Okay, that's what we'll do.
Thank you.
Unless I'm missing something, that was all of that's the end of the agenda.
Okay,
So,
Yeah, Alan, I've just sent a picture to everybody on green cards. I sent an email out and I'd like to have it added to the next agenda. It's just, yeah, okay.
okay, I didn't check my pictures yet.
No, I just sent it, just a picture, but I think we have a problem and we need to try to fix it in some manner, so.
Okay, so we'll have a look at the picture and we'll add her. Anyway, everybody have a
That
great
looks like
day.
my green bin.
What? Yeah,
That looks like my green bin. Same problem with it. Exactly.
motion to adjourn's in order, people.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
discussion, all those in
Best
favor?
move the worst I've ever had.
Motion's carried. We shall see you.